Hi, this is Krista at the Secret Yarnery. Today we are going to make this gorgeous flower granny square. It's super textured and raised, easy to do. If you're a beginner, don't be scared. You can totally do this flower granny square. And if you are partaking in the Bloomscape CAL 2023, you can follow along after we have finished our green leaves. You can jump to the other video to show you how to turn it into the Bloomscape CAL square. And the square will match all of our other squares, which we are joining together at the end of 2023 to make a gorgeous blanket. So 12 different flowers all joined together to make a crochet garden in your home. So I'll link the Bloomscape CAL playlist in the description down below. There is a written pattern available over on my website, secretyarnery.com, and you don't have to worry about being able to read a pattern. All of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I was sitting there beside you. To make this gorgeous crochet flower granny square, you will need yarn. I'm using 4 different colors of a 4 worsted weight acrylic. These are favorite from Ice Yarns. I'll link those down below if you want to get the same colors as I have. And this is a Kenyan acrylic, also a 4 weight worsted acrylic. You'll need a crochet hook. I am using a 5mm crochet hook. You'll need a pair of scissors and a needle for sewing in your ends. So let's get started. Starting with the color of the center, I just put this granny square underneath so you can see this color yarn a little better. So we're just going to start by making a slip knot any which way you normally do, shrinking that down and popping it onto your hook. Now you want to snug that down. You want to make sure your slip knot is really nice and tight because we want to keep our center nice and small. So snug that down. You want the knot tight, but not the loop on your hook. And chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. So now we want to go into that first chain we made right here, right on top of our slip knot. So just pop your hook in, get yourself situated. So you want your tail following your work, and you want a little U shape underneath your hook, and you want to be holding that open with your finger and thumb, and slip stitch to form a ring, and chain 1. Now working right into that ring, right into the middle where we're holding it open, you want to do 5 single crochets. So 5 single crochets into the center of that ring. There's 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now look for this stitch right over there. That's our first single crochet. Right there, we want to slip stitch into that first single crochet. So just slide your hook in under both strands of that V and make 1 slip stitch. You can use some tension here. We don't want it to be a big slip stitch. And chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. And that finishes round 1. If you'd like to check out my work or what I might be working on, check out my weekly podcasts. Now we want to look at the top of our ring we just made. Our slip knot is right here, so there's the stitch right after our slip knot. We want to work in to the stitch right after. So we want to put our hook in to the second stitch after that join. So just slide your hook into that stitch, loop of your new color yarn on your hook, bring it through, and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along the back of your work, and chain 1. So this counts as our first double crochet. Even though it's shorter, it will help our popcorn look like the rest of our popcorns. So now wrap your yarn and 3 double crochets into the same stitch. There is 1, 2, and 3. Pull your hook up. We want to make a big loop just so we don't lose that stitch. And now we want to find that chain we made at the beginning right here. We're going to work right into that chain. Pop your hook into that chain. You want 2 strands on the top of your hook. Put that loop back on your hook and bring it through that stitch. Just make sure your hook is turned down so it can get through that stitch, and chain 2. 1 and 2. Now into our next stitch right here, we're going to do another popcorn. So we're going to do 4 double crochets into the next stitch. 4 regular double crochets. There is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pull your hook up just to make a big enough loop. You don't want to lose that stitch. Now look for your first double crochet we made, this guy right here. We want to slide our hook right at the top of that stitch, both strands of that stitch on the top of your hook. So slide your hook in, put that loop back on your hook, shrink it down, turn your hook, and bring that hook through that stitch, and chain 2. 1 and 2. So we're going to do that into each of our stitches all the way around. So here is our next stitch right here. Wrap your yarn and 4 double crochets into that stitch. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pull your hook up. You want a big loop. And put your hook into that very first double crochet we made, that first of 4, right over there. Loop back on your hook. It doesn't matter which way you put that loop on. Just get it on your hook, shrink it down nice and tiny, and bring your hook through that stitch, chain 2. So we're going to do that into each stitch. So the next stitch along, 4 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pull a big loop up, take your hook out, find that first stitch we made, the first of 4, and we're going to slide our hook right into the top of it. 2 strands of the V on our hook, loop back on our hook. Just hold your hook so you can shrink it down, it won't fall off, and bring that through your stitch. And chain 2. 1 and 2. So we've done 4 popcorns so far, and we have 2 spaces left that look like they could get a popcorn, right before the knot, before our slip knot, and right after. So we're going to do a popcorn into both. So wrap your yarn into that stitch right before our join. 4 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pull a bigger loop up, take your hook out, and look for that first double crochet right there. Pop your hook in, loop back on your hook, shrink it down. You can use your finger on that hook just to keep that loop on. Bring it through and chain 2. 1 and 2. So there's 5. We have 1 left. So right into this very last stitch, right after our join, we're going to do our last popcorn. So 4 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Make a bigger loop, take your hook out, look for that very first double crochet, and we're just going to slide our hook into the top of it, right there. So slide your hook in, 2 strands of that V on your hook, loop back on your hook, just holding it so it doesn't fall off, shrink it down, and slide it through that stitch. Chain 2. So now we're going to slip stitch to join. So just flip your flower a little bit over, and we want to look for this chain we did right after our stitches. This one that holds our popcorn together. So if you flip your work up, you'll see all of our stitches are kind of here, and it's the very first stitch right there. That's where we want to go in with our hook. So just pop your hook into that first chain 1 and slip stitch to join. And that finishes round 2. start round 3, we want to work right into that space, right where our slip stitch is. So we're going to slip stitch into the space. So right into the space, 1 slip stitch. That's where we want to start our popcorns for the next row. And chain 2. 1 and 2. And this short chain is just going to help our popcorn match our other popcorns. If we did a chain 3, this popcorn would have a larger side, and we don't want it to have a large side. So just do a chain 2. And now we're going to do popcorns with 5 double crochets for this round. So 4 more double crochets into that same space. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4, because our chain counts as our first double crochet. So this counts as a 5 double crochet popcorn. Make a big loop, take your hook out, look for that second chain we made. So here is chain number 1. We're going into chain number 2 right there, and we're just going to pull it up. See, if we pull it up, it looks like a regular stitch. So pop your hook into that second chain. You want 2 strands of that chain on the top of your hook. Put your loop back on, shrink it down, bring it through, and chain 2. Now grab your petals from round 1 and grab that popcorn you just made and slide that popcorn back towards you. We need some more space here for another popcorn. So wrap your yarn and 5 double crochets into that same space. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. See, I'm putting my stitches right in that little crack to get them to line up. We want them all to be side by side. So there is our 5 double crochets. Pull a loop up, take your hook out, and put your hook in to that very first double crochet we made. 2 strands on your hook, loop back on your hook, shrink it down, bring it through, and chain 2. 1 and 2. So now into the next space, we're going to do the same thing. So 2 popcorns of 5 double crochets. So 5 double crochets into the next space. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Pull a loop up, take your hook out, put your hook into the top of that first double crochet you made, loop back on your hook, shrink it down, and bring it through. Chain 2. 1 and 2. Now grab that next petal from your first round and your new popcorn, and just slide that popcorn back to give yourself some more room, and 1 more popcorn of 5 double crochets into the same space. So 5 double crochets into that same space. There's 2. And you want to just keep putting your yarn right where that crease is, or right in that little crack. That'll help your stitches lay side by side. So when you go in, just try to angle that yarn so it's in that crack. And that'll just help push your stitches back automatic. Of course, you can always slide your stitches back and give yourself more room if you need to. So there is 5. Big loop up, hook out, and hook into that first double crochet we made. Loop back on your hook, shrink it down, and bring it through, chain 2. 1 and 2. So now I can pause the video and keep working around, making 2 popcorns into each of these spaces. So in between every set of petals from round 1, we're doing 2 petals for round 2. So now pause the video and keep working around, and I'll meet you when we get back to where we started. Looking for a fabulous crochet community? Join our Friday live chats every Friday at 5 p.m. in Nairobi. So I've done 1 popcorn into my very last space, and I'm going to show you a little tip to keep this petal out of the way. If it gets in the way, your hook can snag it. See, when I'm coming through to do my stitch, it can grab that popcorn. So just kind of fold that popcorn out of the way, Like I literally just put it behind, and do your 5 double crochets without that stitch getting in your way, or without that popcorn bothering you. So just fold it back, fold it out of the way, and just do your 5 double crochets. See, now it can come back. You gotta put it on a little timeout so it stays out of the way. So big loop, back into that first double crochet, loop back on your hook, bring it through and chain 2, 1 and 2. So now we're going to slip stitch to join. So it's a chain 2 in between each popcorn. We want to go in to the very first chain right there. That's where we're going to slip stitch to. So look at your work from the top and put your hook into that very first chain 1 right there and slip stitch to join. And that finishes round 3. To start round 4, we're going to slip stitch right into that space, just so we're starting in the right spot, and do our chain 2, 1 and 2. And now we're going to do popcorns with 6 double crochets. So this chain 2 is going to count as my first double crochet. So I'm going to start with 5 double crochets into this very first space. So 5 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I'm going to turn that into a popcorn. So big loop of yarn, hook out. So we're going to look for that second chain, just that one on the side. Right there. We're not going to go into our first double crochet. You don't want to go into that double crochet. That is our second double crochet. We want to go into that chain that's a little bit lower right beside. We want to go in right there. So pop in your hook. You want 2 strands on the top of your hook and turn that into a cute little popcorn. Chain 2. And now we're going to go into the next space and do 1 popcorn with 6 double crochets. So wrap your yarn and 6 double crochets into the next space, just working in between those petals. 6 double crochets. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Just like that. Now we're looking for our first double crochet. Right there. So pop your hook in, loop back on, shrink it down, and bring it through. So there's our popcorn and chain 2. So now you can pause the video and do 1 popcorn of 6 double crochets in between each popcorn of the row below, or in between each set of petals, all the way around our flower, and I'll meet you when we get back to where we started. When you get back closer to where we joined, there's 1 space left. We want to do our popcorn into that space, but just fold those popcorns out of the way. Just pinch them and hide them so they don't get in your way as you do that last popcorn. See how I have them all pinched so they don't bother me? So whatever works for you, just keep those stitches out of the way. You're totally allowed to fold them and hold them down. Put them on a little timeout so you can get those last 6 double crochets into that last space to finish off our flower. So there's my 6. Those petals can come back up, and big loop, take it out into your first double crochet, back on your hook, bring it through, and chain 2. Now we're going to slip stitch into that very first chain 1 right here. So into that very first chain, just push your hook in, 2 strands of that chain on the top of your hook, and slip stitch to join. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. And that finishes round 4. To start round 5, grab your leaf color, whatever color you're using for your leaves, and we want to start 3 spaces back from our join, so we can work over our tail a little bit. So this is space number 1, here's 2, here's 3, so we want to start in this 4th space. right there. Now this doesn't matter, you can join anywhere. I'm just showing you a little tip or trick so you can work over that tail with a corner. Loop of your leaf color yarn on your hook, long enough tail to sew in with a needle. Bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along the back of your work, and chain 2, 1 and 2. So this counts as our first double crochet, and one more double crochet into that same space. Taking care to work over your tail, if you want to, and chain 2, 1 and 2. Into the next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, and into the next space, 1 single crochet, and chain 2. Now into the next space, we're going to do a corner, and we're going to work over that tail. So I'm just going to hold that tail along that space and make 1 double crochet. That'll just pinch it down. Now I don't have to worry about that tail. It's going to stay along with my work, so I can work over it. So now we're going to do 1 more double crochet. So that's 2 double crochets, chain 2, 1 and 2, and 2 more double crochets into that same space, 1 and 2. Chain 2, 1, 2, into the next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, into the next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, and into the next space we're going to do a corner. Corners are 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. So wrap your yarn, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, and 2 more double crochets into that same space, 1 and 2. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and into the next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2. Into the next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2. Into the next space, a corner of 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets all into that same space. So there's my 2 double crochets and my chain 2, and 2 more double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2. So it's already turning itself into a cute little square. Into the next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, into the next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, and into the next space where we joined, just slide your stitches back to give yourself some more space, and we're going to finish with 2 double crochets and a chain 2. So wrap your yarn and 2 double crochets and chain 2, 1 and 2. Now we're going to slip stitch to the top of that chain 3 to join. It's a little bit down here on a hill. Our slip stitch counted as our first chain. Now we're going to slip stitch into the top of that chain 2 to join, just right here. Slide your hook in, 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook, and slip stitch to join. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. And that finishes row 5. To start row 6, just slide your hook into that corner space before our join. Grab your next color, long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Put that loop on your hook, bring it through, and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along the side of your work so we can work over it a little bit, and chain 2, 1 and 2. So that counts as our first double crochet. Wrap your yarn and into the same corner space, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. Drop your tail, and into each of these spaces along the side, we're going to do 3 double crochets into each. So into the first space, 3 double crochets, 1 2, and 3. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Just into the spaces, and into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Now into our corner space, that's where we joined. So I'm going to bring my tail back along my work so I can work over it in that corner space. I'm just going to pinch it, and we're going to make a corner. So that is 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2, 1, and 2. Slide those stitches back so you have some more space for your next set of 3 double crochets, and put your 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. So we've worked over our tail, and we've worked over our knot, our chain 1. So everything is hidden underneath those stitches. And now 3 double crochets into each space along this side. So 3 double crochets. There's 1, 2, and 3. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Now we're at our corner. Corners get a corner. Corners are 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets all into that same corner space. So there's 2, here is 3, chain 2, 1 and 2, and 3 more double crochets into the same corner space. 1, 2, and 3. So now you can pause the video and keep working along. 3 double crochets into each space along the sides, and corners of 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets all the way along the side until you get back to where we started. When you get back to where we started, just slide those stitches back, giving yourself some more room in that corner space, and do your 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And then to finish off your granny square, chain 2, 1 and 2, and slip stitch right into the top of that chain 3 to join. Just pop your hook in and slip stitch to join. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. If you are finishing off your square to be part of the Bloomscape CAL, this playlist is linked down below as well as in the cards up above. You are going to want to join with a chain 1 and a single crochet into the top of that chain 3 to join. So we will join with a chain 1 and a single crochet. And now follow the tutorial to turn it into the Bloomscape CAL square. If you want to just keep going and make a larger granny square, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, turn your work. You don't have to turn your work, but it does help your square stay nice and true. And into this very same space, 2 double crochets to start. 1 and 2. Grab a stitch marker and just pop that into this space we just made, just to mark your corner. So when you're coming around, you notice that this is a corner space and not a side space. sew in your tails, and you're finished. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. See you in that one. Stay hooked.